I want to talk about why grades actually don't matter in graduate school. I know that seems really counterintuitive, but you got to stick with me as I explain what's going on, because I think it's going to be very, very helpful for you in terms of understanding how graduate school works. So, if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I wanted to pay the favor for to help you out. So when you're in graduate school, so I'm going to make the distinction here that if you're in a master's program and you're thinking of going to the next level and doing a PhD, then grades are going to matter. However, if you're treating it as a terminal degree, maybe you're doing an MBA, for example, and you're thinking that you're just going to go back into industry, then grades are not going to matter as much as you think that they're going to matter. What matters is you actually get the degree, right? The old saying goes is, what do you call a doctor that barely passed? A doctor, right? But if you are, if you're doing a PhD and you are thinking of going and doing academia and doing more of that kind of stuff, doing more research, then grades really, really don't matter at that point. However, you still have to do well and you have to try. Now, why don't they matter? There's a couple of things that are going on. The first thing is that absolutely everybody else is at the same level as you are within the cohort. So everybody is really spectacular at that moment. They've already gone through a bunch of hurdles and they're doing extremely well. They do matter in the sense that they give you feedback, that they know you know exactly where you stand. However, they don't really matter in terms of, the grand scheme of things, the bigger thing, the bigger scheme of things, because, nobody ends up asking you once you're done what your grades were in graduate school. So the biggest thing that you have to realize is grades don't matter, because what you're doing is building a skill set, right? So what you're doing is actually building a skill set to excel at doing research. And the outcome that really does matter is not the grades itself. It's actually getting those papers published. It's having original ideas. It is having somebody say or see that the papers that you published, or the things that you have underway, are actually interesting. Now, that is why grades kind of matter, because they are a predictor of what's happening with the ideas that you have, right? So it's usually a predictor. So the outcome in graduate school is that you write some sort of paper. That's kind of a normal outcome. Sometimes you'll have exams, right? So in the courses that I teach, sometimes I'll have exams, and that's just to give you a sense of, or to sort of put everything together, or I teach a research methods course, for example, so I want to make sure that people understand the research methods, and so it'll force them to study a little bit. But a lot of courses want you to write a paper at the end of it, so if that paper is very clear, your grade is probably going to be okay, and you're going to do okay. But what matters is that paper can be turned into, whether it's a conference publication that you can go to a conference because of it, or that it turns into a publication eventually. When you have a paper that you wrote that is just good enough for the seminar or good enough for a conference, that's just that's the next hurdle. There's a lot more to go from there. So to build that skill set that you have to get a great paper, you do have to excel at the different courses, right? So there is that correlation there, because what's happening is, there's a lot of different factors why grades can be high for somebody. And it could be, one of the factors is that there is maybe some intelligence or something like that. But that's only a small factor. It could be the fact that they spent a lot of time at this particular thing, or, they went above and beyond what was expected of them. Well, if they went above and beyond what was expected of them in the course on a paper, then that means that paper is probably going to be pretty good, and it's on its road to go to the next thing. And so that's where you have to sort of think about, what is your ultimate goal? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Is it the fact that you're trying to accomplish getting good grades? And if that's the case, that is that's a small hurdle. That's not necessarily the biggest thing that you need to do. The biggest thing that you need to do is actually publish and get good research done or have original ideas that people think are very interesting or original. And so how do you do that? Sometimes you actually have to take courses that are really hard, that stretch you, that you're probably actually not going to do very well in, because maybe it's a course in a different area. Maybe it's a course that you don't understand that much, and it's going to pull you to go do something else, right? So it's like Steve Jobs learning about calligraphy, and that was the sort of insight towards having all the different fonts in Macintosh when it was first introduced, and which created all the different fonts, interesting fonts that we have in computers. So having that insight to go and do things that are challenging that you're probably not going to get a good grade in, or to build a base where you're not going to get a good grade in, and those things, those are going to do you much better in the long run in terms of publishing and having good, original, interesting ideas than worrying about those grades. I think that's a fundamental mistake that most graduate students do, is they worry about the fact that you're going to get good grades when it doesn't matter. Getting good grades probably means that maybe the entry barrier wasn't high enough for that course, or the course wasn't tough enough, or in general you might have been wanting to get pushed, or you should be pushed a little bit harder, right? So those things are really important for you to excel at publishing and doing good research, because then you get stretched. That's what you're looking for, is to get stretched in different areas, so your mind goes into different things. Now, if you're intelligent enough to ace absolutely everything, that's amazing. You're not like me, but that's amazing and good for you. But I think most people are pretty ordinary, and they're not going to get good grades in everything. But what you should strive for is doing your best, and that you have very good, that you're trying, that you're being pushed, and you're really, really trying. That's the important thing with it. So do grades matter in graduate school? Nobody's ever going to ask you once you're done what your grades were. If you are doing a master's program, you're doing an MBA, if you're going to consulting, they might ask you. But in general, if you're doing, PhDs, terminal degree, nobody's ever going to ask you what your grades are. And what matters is actually the outcomes that you're going to produce, the interesting things that you're doing. So with that, give me a thumbs up, do subscribe to the YouTube channel, take care, and have a wonderful day. Bye.